Welcome, everybody, to the Lion Zone. It's been a little while, and we've had some technical difficulties, but we got it all straightened out. I'm your host, Steve Johan, and here on the Lion Zone, you learn to be a lion and not the prey in a world of hungry jackals and vicious wolves. For more about me, go to stevejohan.com or stevejohan.substack.com. I've got another great guest lined up for us, but before we get into the guest, I've got a song, and it's going to go along with a theme of what we're talking about. So here we go. All right. So, Shiva, do you know who that might be or who that might be at all?
I don't know. It sounds very familiar. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I don't know. What is?
Okay, well, it is actually very close. It is 1978 disaster flick called The Swarm, and
I was gonna
that
say that, but I thought it would be too obvious.
yes, and that song is called "The Bees Picnic," and it was it was composed by the famous Jerry Goldsmith, and it was a disaster flick during the day, featuring people like Richard Chamberlain, Olivia de Havilland, Ben Johnson, Michael Caine, Catherine Ross, Richard Widmark, and the whole bit. And it was put out. It was a movie made by Irwin Allen, the guy that made famous Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Lost in Space and all that. And it was a big blockbuster, but the fact is it failed at the box office. It was not critical. So it was kind of like the tail end of his career in that world. But I thought I would play The Swarm because my guest today is Mr. Shiva, Dr. Shiva, Ayyadurai, and I'm gonna so explain your last name. How do you pronounce that?
So it's Ayyadurai.
Ayyadurai. He's an
Yeah.
MIT PhD, inventor of the email, is a scientist, inventor, entrepreneur, Fulbright scholar with 4 degrees from MIT. And I'll talk to you a little bit later about our debacle of trying to get him on the show. It was my fault, both of our faults. So anyway, his life has been of solving very tough problems, identifying the root cause, bringing together people to innovate real solutions. And he was also ran for the president. And I have a bumper sticker that's sitting on my window of my van. It says, Dr. Shiva for president, freedom, health, and what's the last one
Here you
there?
go. Truth, freedom, health, right here.
That's right. Thank you. I've got that right on the back of
Yeah.
my red van. And so I voted for you because I wanted to bring someone into the fray that wasn't part of the evil team. And both teams are evil, right and left. They play us against each other. And I wanted to talk and kind of start things out with I got a number of things, but Dr. Shiva, tell me a little bit about you came over from India and you went to school and you were an activist. But how is it that in all this process you've come to realize that there is a systems that we need to understand and that you've seen the system, you've operated within what I would call MIT, which is part of the system in a lot of ways. And then what you did is you came out the other side and you said, I want to be an activist. I want to help people out. I don't want to become part of it. Because Shiva, you could have been tapped to be the next Zuckerberg or the next fake Elon Musk. But you chose to do a different path. Why is that?
Well, here's the bottom line. I've never been part of the system from day one. So MIT and any of the things that took place in my life were always events by the swarm to try to co-opt me. It may be hard for people to understand this, but I didn't even know about MIT until 2 weeks. I didn't even know the institution, what the institution was. And so let's start there. Here's a guy who invents email at the age of 14, um, is number one in a class of 900 students in a school that has, I think, like 4,000 kids. In the last 3 years, my parents moved to a predominantly all Jewish Zionist high school in a public school system where people think they're the chosen people of God. My sister and I were the only two dark-skinned Indians. This is in the 1970s, where
Wow.
very few Indians were even in the United States. A lot of Indians here don't even deal with this because they didn't have to deal with this. But there was all sorts of interesting prejudices, at that time.
What school district was that? Where, what state?
Livingston High School. And in fact, in my high school, and not only I wasn't just a nerd, I played baseball, in a division, whatever the highest division's soccer team, undefeated. So Chris Christie went to that high school, who was a catcher on our baseball team. Harlan Coben went there. Jason Alexander went there, who was in from Seinfeld fame. This is a very interesting high school. And I was just so um, recently inducted into Livingston Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, about 8 years ago. But here's the background. Um, First, people may not know there's a caste system in India. And that caste system basically means that a small set of people, 0.00001%, called Brahmins, are taught from day one, from the time they're born, that they're better than everyone else. All right. So my parents and the family I grew up in were not Brahmins. We were non-Brahmins. In fact, quote unquote, untouchable caste, one of the castes that the Indian government designates. You see, they actually have castes. It was written in text like these people are supposed to be garbage cleaners. These people are literally like this. Okay.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have not experienced it when you're treated in a very different way, right? In this environment. So I experienced those things as a young kid and was very, very moved because of the injustice that I felt personally.
Yeah.
Being spit upon and called a shudra, which is like the N word, right? And wanting to understand this as a 4-year-old kid. And my mother said, "Oh, we have this caste system. When I go to the well, they spit at me. So think about that. So this is 1960s, in the mid 60s, right? When the United States is also going, this is in India, right? So my parents somehow made it to the United States. And you have to understand, my parents are extraordinary people. My mom grew up in an environment where she's a dark-skinned, low-caste Indian woman in
Oh,
South India.
she could have been cast into the prostitution cast over there.
Well, the bottom line is the chance of a woman, South Indian woman, dark-skinned woman, ever even getting a mathematics degree and a master's degree in statistics is unheard of.
Yeah.
My mother was to all these women who want to talk about like they're so strong and feminist. My mom never spoke about it, but she exhibited in what she was. And there's a picture of my mother. I got to find it. This dark-skinned Indian woman in a row of benches of, 40 other light-skinned men with their turbans. And there's a little dark-skinned woman sitting over here. It's really poignant.
Wow.
That was my mother, who grew up in a broken family where the father ran off and she was made, essentially thrown out of the house when she was 8 years old her family was split up. That's my mom. Think about that. And then my dad grew up in Burma. I mean, I can't even believe this shit as I'm telling you this. And my dad just passed away recently.
Sorry to hear that.
I just thought this was normal shit. But when I think about it as I'm speaking to you, it's even more extraordinary than I think about it. Like I've shared this with people. People don't even believe this is true. That's fucking truth. My dad grew up in Burma
Wow.
in World War II, where there's bombs dropping. He's
I was going
a
to say there's the war and the
yeah,
Burmese and the whole war over there.
exactly. And
Yeah.
he talks about living in foxholes, and his grandfather would go out and see, he talked about taking food. There was a local prisoner of war camp and he would throw food to the Americans, okay? Because so anyway, this is my dad. Never saw a book in his life until the age of 10 as refugees that come back to India. And then he has to learn, and he ends up becoming a fucking chemical engineer in India.
So how
Now,
old how old was your dad when I mean, when was he born? What year?
1933.
So my dad was born in 26, and he came from a family here in Puyallup Valley, and he got drafted into World War II, served, came out, didn't know what he was going to do with his life, probably following the same steps that his family. And somebody said in a factory where he was working, "What are you going to do with your life?" And my dad said, "Well, I don't know." Well, the guy said, "Well, I'm saving money to put my grandchild through college. Do you have a GI Bill?" My dad said, "Yeah." "What would you like to do?" And my dad said, "Well, I'd like to be a chemical engineer." And he went on and became a chemical engineer. First of his family, the only one on his side to ever go to college. So
This is your dad, Steve?
my dad, he just died last year at 96.
Yeah, that's my dad, chemical engineer too.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. So, uh, and my dad learned mathematics literally under a mango tree on those old slate boards by this guy who's a really incredible person. He actually was a communist, this old gentleman. He died at the age of 96, right? And he taught my dad to write on literally under a mango tree. And in that place, I just helped build a village school there where now 1,500 kids go,
Awesome.
every so anyway, that was my mom and dad. My dad was such a good engineer. He reported to a guy called Gopala Singhania, who was one of the biggest industrialists of India. And he said, we're going to send you to the United States for training. This is like 1967. So my dad came for training in 1967 to Unilever in Chicago. And he came there, and the guy that he worked for was blowing up the lab. I mean, my dad was an engineer. And after a year, the guy said, "You know more than I do. I have nothing to teach you. Why don't we hire you?" My dad was very loyal to his employer. He said, "No, I can't do that. I couldn't betray my employer." So he went back and he told him what happened. And his employer said, "No." He goes, "My dad's name was Ayyadurai, which is really my last name, which is his first name. In India, South Indians actually don't have a last name, believe it or not. It's an interesting culture." Um, so my dad, so Mr. Singhania is a very interesting guy, sort of one of these benevolent kings. He said, "You know what? You should actually go to the United States. I want you to go there. I want you to advance in your career." So very rare human being, but my dad was quite rare and he saw how hard he works. So my dad came in 1969, and that's when a recession hit the United States. So he
Yep.
had a job promised to him. He lands here with 75 bucks and there's no job. And he's walking down the street and he meets a guy called Jesse Jenkins, who was a cellist who played in a band. He let my dad first stayed at the, I think, WMCA, YMCA, and then he
Yep.
stayed Jesse in this, he talked to this old, apartment, which had just dusty, which had music equipment, all this kind of stuff. And so, and then my dad got a job, even though I think they paid him 12 or $13,000 a year. His white counterparts were getting paid three times that. Okay. Very solid engineer. He'd solve amazing problems. So my dad would bring very interesting chemical engineering problems. He was a manufacturing all different kinds of things. He and I would solve Navier-Stokes equations together. I mean, I'm 10 or 12 years old. Okay. I don't thought this was all normal. I would help write my dad's reports because I knew English, and my dad was very smart, but his English wasn't that great. And he always felt, so I would write his engineering reports for his supervisor. Again, I thought this was normal, on those old typewriters, not electric typewriters. We couldn't afford them. Um, but my dad and I, we would do mathematics problems until 2 in the morning.
Wow.
Work, and he wanted to get an MBA, so he'd come home from work. He and I would do problems. I would go to bed at 2 a.m. So my schedule is I'd wake up at 7 a.m., go to bed at 2 a.m. because I also played sports. So looking back, I thought all this was normal, man. I'd come home at 8 p.m. after after playing sports. And I graduated number one in anything I did. I worked my butt off. In one of the schools I went to, I was the best student. This is in seventh grade, and the teachers would not allow me to take an exam to determine who was the best kid. This is like fucking not allowing me on the debate stage. That happened here in Massachusetts,
Oh, wow.
right? My mom had gotten home from work and she drove in with my father and they ripped that teacher a new one. They go, "What the fuck are you talking about? Do you want you say this is a Jewish school or a Jewish public, a lot of Jewish. Do you want my son to be another Hitler?" That's how my dad spoke to them. You're creating another Hitler. You're discriminating against him. So I would endure these things where I was a proven best and they would keep me out of exams, right? So people do not understand. A lot of Indians in this country, in the United, do not understand the level of discrimination we'd go through. So we fought for a lot of people's rights that Indians take for granted. And many Indians come here now, Steve, and they just live in their little enclaves and send money back home. They don't even assimilate in any of the American culture, you know? So anyway, so that was the environment I grew up in. Constant hard work. My mother would say that you would have to say if you're, she said you're going to have to work 3 times harder just to get an A, even though because of the discrimination you're going to suffer. And that's the way I worked. I never whined about it. Okay. So because of how hard I worked and the advances I made, by the time I was 14, I went to New York University in a computer science program. 40 kids were selected. I actually graduated number one in that program. You can see the certificates are up there. And then um, got a job working full time at a medical school. This is at the age of 14 with people 30, 40, 50, 60 years older than me.
Are we talking early 80s, late 70s?
Oh, 70s, 1978.
Okay.
Okay. So here, my high school's here. I would take a bus in, work, and then go back to high school. I had some humanities courses left. I'd finished all the math courses, etc. And that in that university, in that small medical college in Newark, New Jersey, I invented the first email system. Wrote 50,000 lines of code, named it email. All of this before I came to MIT. By the time I was done with this, um, I was frankly done, Steve. I wanted to actually do design, believe it or not, be a carpenter. I think only applied to 2 colleges. One state school called Stevens Institute of Technology, and the other was Princeton. I didn't really apply anywhere else. And I didn't really even want to go to college. I'd work my butt off. I'd work until 2, 3 in the morning on building this email system, right? It was sort of not burnout, but I was done with technology. I really wanted to do design and art, believe it or not.
Oh, that's funny. I wanted to do that when I was in high school, and then I went off to electromechanical drafting school, got a
Uh-huh.
year's worth of certification, 80, started working in the electronics world. And I did that until in 1987, I went back to school, the Art Institute, to chase my dreams. Well, by the time I got out, I couldn't get a job in advertising whatsoever. Just
Uh-huh.
started doing a lot of pick me up jobs at screen printing, graphic jobs, and eventually started my own business. But it's interesting. My father, I don't know if your father was this way, but my father was a carpenter. He did a lot of finished work. That was his hobby. When he
Uh-huh.
wasn't at work, he'd come home and I was out there in the shop. I became second nature for me. So I enjoy when I'm not doing this and I'm not writing or whatever, I go home and I build things and I work on things. I like to work on my car because even though I don't have the engineering, my middle son has that. He's off and doing that. But I didn't get that part, but naturally I can see how things work and I enjoy that. So it's interesting you say carpentry because now my youngest son he's a carpenter. He got into that. He got some training in high school and went out and he loves it. He's doing remodeling. So
Yeah, I used to do a
incredible.
lot of carpentry growing up, you know. We just had a bunch of trees cut, 2 big trees that were about to fall. We had them sliced into, big 2-inch panels.
Yes.
But Yeah, so anyway, so I really didn't want to any of this, and my mother was always helping a lot of people of her background. She'd always help sort of broken souls, and she'd find these two women who were essentially homeless. One of them had been kicked out of her home. She was going through a divorce, and she let these two women stay in our house. We had a downstairs basement, sort of, it wasn't really an apartment, but a basement area. And one of these women had a friend, a wacky friend who came by, and he said, you should apply to this place called MIT. Now, think about this. I'm the number one student in a high school, have invented email, have won the Westinghouse, one of the Westinghouse Science Honors. Don't you think someone would have told me about MIT, Steve?
Yeah, they would have had a recruiting thing that might they should have been
No
recruiting you.
one, no one told me,
Wow.
right? The jealousy I had to endure was quite interesting. Absolute, in retrospect, it was jealousy. Why would you not tell, oh, that's a dark-skinned Indian guy. He doesn't get that, okay? No one told me this. In fact, my physics teacher's son was a PhD student at MIT. Never told me.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyway, so this random guy comes to our home that my mother had helped these two women who were living in the basement, trying to get their feet back on the ground. My mom's helping them out. And one of their friends, this guy says, "Oh, you should." And I remember the brochure. I've said this story so many times, but I can't believe this shit. And I see the dome of MIT. I still can see it. It's a white, thing with the catalog. And he said, "You should apply here." And it was the application. I go, "I don't know what this is." I was scared. It looked like a mental institute. Those big columns. It seemed too big. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Big for my comfort. And he came again 2 weeks before the application is due, and I fill it out with a pencil because I really didn't want to do this. And they had you, one of the things MIT asked you to do was a drawing of a cartoon character you liked. Some weird thing. I drew a picture of Beetle Bailey. Remember this?
Yep. Yep.
I love reading the funny papers. Um, and I get accepted. After I get accepted, then the physics teacher comes to me. She goes, "Oh, you must go. My son is there." Well, I'm in your fucking physics class. I'm acing everything. You wouldn't tell me about MIT, but because you know why? They get credit. The teachers get credits. And by the way, my physics teacher had a number tattooed. She said she'd been in the Holocaust and she'd been released. Okay. So I go to MIT, and I remember still to this day walking up the steps of 77 Mass Ave, and I see these people and they look fucked up. Huge backpacks, hunched over, nerd looking guys. I mean, this is they look sick to me. I was into athletics and doing well. I said, like, do you have to look like this and
You mean
behave
like
like this?
Bill Gates?
Something like that. Little bunch of
Yeah.
gnomes.
Yep.
Or
Sick.
little things like Elon Musk twitching, like
Yes.
weird shit,
Yes.
not human. Okay. And by the way, as an aside, after I came into MIT, I'd see normal kids speak normally. Afterwards, they would develop these twitches and these ways of mannerisms of talking as though they had to like flail their hand a little bit and talk like this and have nasally voices to be intelligent. I mean, I literally saw them transform, Steve.
Wow.
Fascinating. Okay. It was like you had to be part of the cult.
Yes.
So, anyway, so I came and I did not want to go. Here I'm accepted, right? I have a couple of scholarships I won. I could have gone, MIT in those days was $4,000 a year, okay, a semester. I'm sorry, 8 grand a year. Now it's like I don't know what it is now, a couple hundred grand. So anyway, I didn't want to go. I was not interested. I thought this place was like fucking dead, like something behemoth. And I went back, and then my teachers are trying to convince me to go. And this physics teacher says, "Oh, my son, I forget his name, is at MIT. He's doing, you should go." And I go, and she didn't see me that interested. And she said, "You will like Boston." Because I love cities. I grew up in Bombay, this crazy stuff. Um, New York was interesting, right? I liked this. little bit of chaos, right? So I said, oh, Boston's interesting. That was the only reason I came, Steve. It's the only reason. I came
Wow.
to MIT. The day I arrive at MIT, and you can see it on the Inventor of Email site, it was September 3rd, I think September 23rd, 1981. They had the orientation where you get to meet with the president of MIT, all this stuff. Front page of MIT, it lists 3 kids out of the 1,041 kids who were coming. And I was one of the 3 kids highlighted. So out of
Wow.
all these hundreds or millions of kids who applied to MIT, I'm accepted, and I am the one who's highlighted. And I had enough credits to leave MIT in 2 years with all the AP credits I had. So I come in here with the ability to leave in 2 years. And front page of MIT, these 3 kids, one of the kids invented the first email system. I'm there, right? But I was interested very much in this system, you know, that this system, and I was very interested in political systems because I knew these systems were ultimately the reason that my parents were treated that way, you see? And the fact that I was here, for whatever reason, I was into systems. In 1975, I'd gone back to India briefly, and I saw the stark differences between India and the United States. You know, my grandparents had no shoes or living, you know, no electricity, no running water. My aunt lives in a little hut, this kind of stuff. You know, it really transformed me to say, wait a minute, I'm going to go back to the United States. And if I don't do something, I'm going to be a parasite. That was what went in my mind as a 12-year-old kid. That's why I became very, very emboldened to excel, right? To do something for them, not for me, you know? If it was for me, I would have just hung out, you know? So it was a sense of duty. And so when I came to MIT, I got very interested in politics. I hooked up with a friend of mine. He passed away, unfortunately. His name was Arnold Contreras. Arnold came from Mexican American migrant workers. He was one of, I think, 10 kids. He had somehow gone to MIT, got in into MIT. MIT had a small subset of minorities, blacks and Hispanics, who they allowed in the early 80s under the post-affirmative action, and they never gave them that much support, knowing that they would drop out and they could say, oh, we tried to help these people.
Right. They would
Well,
wash out. Yeah.
they would wash out. So in 1981, when I arrived, a black dean at MIT had gotten fired. And she was the one who was instrumental in implementing some reforms to help these poor kids. And it was a Reagan era. Oh, we don't need those programs. We don't, right? So since Arnold and I became good friends, we organized a student newspaper called The Student, which was a revolutionary newspaper. And he and I initially were thinking Jesse Jackson was an anti-establishment. And we saw Jesse Jackson sell out to Mondale. So by 1982, 1983, 4, we had become radicals because we had realized that the left and the right were full of shit. We had a student newspaper. You know, I was, as a radical, I was brought over to Noam Chomsky to work with him, who was a resident radical at MIT. And I realized, this guy's really not that radical. He takes all the radicals and sort of tries to make them sort of mental masturbating radicals. He says a lot of good stuff. He writes a lot of good stuff. But at the end of the day, he's not an activist. Okay?
No, no, he's not. He's
Right.
also a gatekeeper as far as I'm concerned.
Big gatekeeper. Okay? And we'll get more into him. But anyway, I mean, think about this, right? So it's quite extraordinary, right? So here we raised hell on campus. We had this little 8.5 by 11 piece of newspaper, and we competed with the student newspaper, which was funded about $1 million and had 50 pages. And people would wait for our news because it was very satirical. We'd hit everyone. I mean, it was, but still this beyond left and right stuff, you know?
Yep.
Um, so um, that was, so to say that I was a part of MIT is absolutely false. If anything, I fought against MIT every instance I was there. There's a picture of me burning the South African flag on the steps of MIT you can find. Glad we took a picture of it. Okay? Because MIT had investments in South Africa. There's a picture of me organizing the food service workers at MIT for a strike. I did that while at MIT. And so the guy who could get out of MIT in 2 years ended up staying there 5 years because I was doing so much public service, you say? And my thesis that's back there. You know, you have to write a thesis. Um, bunch, so that's what I did. So MIT in many ways was my enemy because I learned what it was about. I learned the third floor of MIT was the computer science department, which was all CIA. You see?
It's a
We chased the CIA. I did a massive protest. CIA used to come to MIT to recruit. We chased them off campus. So here I was, here at one of the best students in the country from one of the best high schools, 14 years old, create email. I mean, I was their model guy who should probably have gotten a PhD at 21 and become a professor there. And it's interesting looking back at that. Why didn't I pursue that? I just fucking couldn't do it because I hated these guys at some deep, deep, deep level. And I can't put it on it, but it was in deep inside of me was a hatred against these systems of power, even though they wanted me to be part of them. You see, but the interesting thing was I didn't invent MIT at email at MIT, and this is what's extraordinary. I invented it in a small medical college in an African American community in Newark, New Jersey. And this is what the elites do not want to know. That's why when the truth about my inventing email came out, well, I didn't even try to get credit for it. It was when my mother died in 2012. In 2011, before she was dying, which, she had pulmonary fibrosis, she didn't even let me know. She had organized all my material in the Samsonite suitcase, gave it to me, the editor of Time Magazine, the only guy to review it, senior editor Doug Amiff. He wrote the article in Time Magazine. You can find it called The Man Who Invented Email.
Yeah, I
And
saw
then
that.
it did the Smithsonian, and it created this massive uproar. It was the liberal racists who
Wow.
attacked me saying, oh, you're a fraud. How could you invent email? It was fuck you. I did invent email. But I never even wanted that credit, Steve. I was more interested in fighting, you see? But when they attacked me, I had to not fight for me, but for that 14-year-old kid. And that's when I started piecing all this together. Why is there so much hatred? The hatred is not the fact that I invented email, because that's black. The facts are black and white. Here's all the documentation. I fucking named it email. I have the copyright, you fuckers. The controversy was created because I created email not at MIT, but in Newark, New Jersey, as a 14-year-old dark-skinned Indian American kid. In fact, I was Indian. I wasn't even an American kid. I hadn't even become a US citizen until 1983. Now, this is fucked up for them. And by the way, my story is very similar to Philo Farnsworth, who invented TV. A 14-year-old kid on a farm in Franklin, Idaho,
Yes.
invented TV, and he had a very similar background. He had a family which supported him, a mentor, and he was given access to tools. So the point is, I did this as a 14-year-old kid. How many other 14-year-old kids out there? But I wasn't taught like Bill Gates's family to go steal other people's stuff and do PR. You see? I didn't get and when the credit I should have gotten occurs, it's a controversies created on purpose. Wikipedia, my page is shut down when people try to say, wait a minute, he did invent email. People who try to say that I invented email, they're abused. The facts are so fucking black and white on this. There's not even a gray area who invented email. The establishment had to find a nerd who looked like a fucking nerd, glasses, this guy Tomlinson, who by his own writing said, I didn't invent email. I wrote 15 lines of code to attach text to a file. At best, that's a caveman version of Reddit. I created email, the system as we know it today. Inbox, outbox, folders, every fucking feature. And the fact that I even have to explain this and fight for, if I were white and my last name was Reinstein or Einstein, and I had fucking blue eyes and blonde hair, I'd be on a fucking stamp in every part of the world. And it's a fucking fact. And that's what's sick about it. It's fucking sick.
Well, and I think what I want to break in here is you have put your I asked you what was it that took you out of not becoming part of the system, and you just laid it out really well, Dr. Shiva. You just
Well,
laid
but it was
it out.
even before email, I was out of the system. You see, I've always been
That's
fighting
right.
for Steve. I fought to make sure more women could get into MIT, more
Yes.
minorities, more poor white kids. But when I had to fight for myself, it was a very interesting journey. You see, because you're taught to not take credit for things that you do. This is what the establishment does. It's very clever. The establishment tries to take credit for everything they do, even what they don't do. Booby fucking Kennedy did not write a senior thesis and win this. He had some other guy do it, and he gave him some cocaine and some pussy to do that. That's what he actually did. He traded that. And people who don't, and people who said, "Oh, I don't want my 10-year-old to hear this," well, he should fucking hear it. Your kids should hear how to curse. Don't tell me that you don't want your kids how to curse. Oh, I'm so prudish. Fuck you. You're not. Because you watch movies that you allow Hollywood people to curse, but I can't curse. Now, is that racist? Because I'm a dark-skinned Indian guy, I'm supposed to dip my head this way and be all fucking nice and talk like this and be like fucking Gandhi? No, that's what the real issue is. The real racism is you try to bucket me, and you can't bucket me. Okay? Because I can, you know, I could have been in the major leagues. I threw a very good fastball. I was a good baseball player, and I could write email. You see, that skill set level, the swarm doesn't want any one person to have. They want you to be a nerd. Oh, and to be a nerd, you have to be hook nose, and you have to be all fucked up looking, and you have to have a nasally accent, and you have to have twitches. I
Well,
saw
I mean,
kids that
like
have become like that.
you need to look like the crew on the Big Bang Theory TV show, because that's why they typecast. They typecast that for you to think that all nerds that go to MIT look like the cast on the Big Bang Theory, when in reality, it's hardworking farm boys like my dad, like your father, who go to be engineers, go to work for big companies and change things. And you're the same thing. You took and you said, I'm talented, and you have changed things. And it's uh, I want to jump for a moment and then we'll come back to
So
this.
my point is just to anyone listening out there, MIT got me. You see, MIT recruits people
Yes.
like me. In retrospect, I didn't need to fucking go to MIT. I knew more stuff in my high school. MIT was more a place of me understanding the dynamics of power. And that's what I did. I wasn't there. I mean, I had done calculus in ninth grade, guys. Freshman at MIT take calc. I'd done it in ninth grade. I did linear algebra in 10th grade. I wrote a theorem in 10th grade that was published, Steve, in a mathematics journal. I discovered a theorem. It's called Ayyadurais 4-point theorem. It's a linear algebraic theorem of how the, cross product of two vectors. It's a very interesting theorem, actually. You can use it for a lot of different things, but that's the kind of shit. So I had mastered this shit because in retrospect, I thought everyone could do this, but in retrospect, I had some God-given talents for my two parents. But I just thought it was normal. But I played baseball, I loved to fish, I could do carpentry, I could build anything. So coming to MIT was in some ways a fucking downer. It wasn't, I sat in my computer science classes looking at these nerds, and I had already built all these things. Like they were complicating programming concepts that didn't need to be. It's like a guy who built cars his life, then going to learn mechanical engineering. Okay? It's like you're listening to these nerds talking about shit so anyway, but I put up with that shit because I decided at one point that I would get all their fucking degrees to fuck them. And I made that conscious decision. So those four theses up here, PhD thesis, two master's theses, and you have to write these theses. I did this because I wanted to say fuck you and build a revolutionary movement because I do not like these people. They're not that smart. They're not that talented. They're they're all going to be replaced. They can be easily replaced by AI. They're not really critical thinkers. And so yeah, so MIT was a place, and I went in and out of there to get those degrees. That's why I put boldly MIT PhD. Why? It's not for me, it's to say fuck you. Because what are they going to do now? Because I'm doing my thing, truth, freedom, health, building a global movement to educate people to critically think on why you must become warrior scholars and why you must shatter the swarm if you are truly human, and why you must get out of their fucking molds that they try to stick you into. Because a human being is far more than anything they can imagine, right? So that's what this is about. So And then after MIT, right, I'd many opportunities, right? I'd leave, and then people would recruit me to come back to do my master's. I'd leave. Oh, you should do your PhD. I'd leave. Let's give you a lecturer position, right? So the typical thing was, you know, I should be a tenured professor, with maybe a Nobel Prize or so, where I was headed, right? And in this thing as an institute professor at MIT, like a Chomsky. That was the trajectory if you look at it, right? But the problem is that I never forgot, for whatever reason, whatever it's genetic, epigenetic, whatever it is, where I came from, and I could not swallow the suffering of people that I saw, everyday people that I knew in New Jersey who taught me how to paint, houses. These are hardworking American immigrants, many of them. And I never could. And I looked at these other nerds who couldn't even fucking tie their shoelace or throw a fucking baseball, who are going to run the world, or morons at Harvard that I walked down to who would wear their little preppy fucking clothes, like uniforms, their khakis and their pinstripe things. And it was like, uniforms. And then when I started reading about the booby fucking Kennedys of the world, what a joke they were, or the fucking Donald Trumps or the Bernie Sanders, these people selling out people. I said, I got to do something about this because I've been given access to these worlds. But at every point, Steve, I had many, I mean, literally being given opportunities to be co-opted. Went to India on a Fulbright, got recruited by the Prime Minister of India to be the first outstanding scientist, technologist of Indian origin, given the opportunity to run one of the biggest innovation centers, discover corruption. I could have kept my mouth shut and become, the Minister of Science and Tech. I couldn't do it. Here I have a huge bungalow, where 7 bungalows on 10 acres in India where only ministers are. And I expose them, and under death threats, I had to leave India. Who the fuck does this kind of shit? What is it in me that does this? Here, I expose all the stuff in 2020 with election fraud, with the backdoor portal to Twitter. And then Trump invites me, and find him to be a fucking moron. He steals all my shit. Booby Kennedy steals all my shit, and now they act like they're radicals against the establishment. No, they're not. They, in fact, want to shatter the swarm. Trump started saying, shatter the deep state, shatter this, right? They know of my existence and our movement's existence. And they have all the people done the analysis. They say, shit, this guy's a real deal. We must not ever whisper his name. Just like in 7th grade, we must not let him participate in the competition, even though he's gotten all A's. Right? In Massachusetts, not only did we get on the ballot against Elizabeth Warren, we got all the votes. They would not put me on the debate stage, and the Democrats and Republicans. They fucking fear me because I'm real. I'm of the people. But the difference is I have a voice. For every one of me, there's probably a million other people who are equally talented, have worked equally hard, but they don't have a voice because they were suppressed. So I speak for all those fucking people.
Well, I want to you touched on it, but MIT and Wharton and some of these other schools, Stanford, all they're feeder programs for what I call the deep state or the darklings or the system. They're part of the system swarm.
They
They,
recruit the best.
they bring
And
in people who I have a friend whose 2 sons got going at Wharton. They're from Africa. She's from Ethiopia, and they were great soccer players, brilliant young men, hardworking. They're in there. I don't know what they do, but they get recruited to be involved with the Goldman Sachs, all these kind of companies, and they get co-opted. And if they don't have the backbone like you, a lot of these young men, young women come into these schools, they get co-opted, and before you know it, they are now part of the problem. They're not stepping out of it, or maybe they get burned out, and they do. But this is how I look at a lot of these schools. They're feeder programs to feed the swarm. Is that a correct thinking?
yeah, and yeah, so if you think about it here, I'm in this high school. By the way, I got 800 on my SATs. Okay, aced all these things, worked very hard, created email, right? What the fuck did MIT have to teach me in retrospect? The undergraduate education there was nonsense in many ways for me.
Yep.
So they chose the best of the best out of a public school system and then put their brand on me. Who's benefiting? They are. I didn't fucking benefit because I already knew all this knowledge. I could teach chemistry at MIT by the time I came into MIT. You see what I'm saying? I could teach calculus because I had done this at ninth grade. Like, what the fuck was MIT really doing for me? Except giving me their brand. So there are other kids I'm sure benefited, but in my case, they took the best of the best, and the job was I would be recruited to do one of these nonsensical things. In fact, when I was in finishing up, so I got recruited by Hewlett Packard. They only choose two kids every year into their medical program. It's called a call program, the 2 years masters and sorry, and your 4 year, 5 years masters and bachelors. I got recruited to the MD PhD program at Harvard. You see? I got recruited by Lawrence Livermore National Labs, where only they choose a few students out of MIT to work on their top secret projects. Couldn't do it. Was not interested in any of this shit. So everyone else would give their right arm to do it.
Yeah, but isn't Lawrence Liverware where they create all sorts of bioweapon?
Bioweapons, bombs, all that shit.
Yeah,
So that was when I was
it's
20 something. And I went there and I went with another friend of mine, and he wanted the job. They didn't recruit him. It was very sad. I felt really bad. He's the one who took me. And oh, Shiva, I go, oh, okay. I just went for the ride. I said, oh, get a free trip to California. And I'd never been there. So, um, so the point is, it's not I had a backbone, Steve. I never wanted to be part of this.
yeah.
I never forgot where I came from. I never could forget my great grandfather. I could see him right now on that dirt road. I would walk in through the village. He'd be out in the fields, and he only had his little vesty on. You know, he would be ripped in 90 some odd working in the fields. And here's a guy who's an indentured slave.
Yes,
I could never fucking betray him.
that's right.
I still can't. You see? So I can't betray those people.
You know, I had John Perkins, the economic hitman, on my last episode, and we delved into a little bit. His book woke me up. His book, among others, woke me up to the corporatocracy, the way things really are. And so that got me started. So it was interesting to have him on, and he's spending his whole life trying to make penance for what he did, basically, because he knows he corrupted countries, he corrupted regimes, and now he's out educating people on this, and he's trying to bring out solutions. And what I like about what you're doing is you didn't get corrupted, and you're about solutions, and it's a bottoms-up program. So I want you to tell me a little bit about how you took your systems, understanding systems, and now you've created your website, you've created your courses, which I'm going to start going through, but you you saw the connectivity of corporate working with this company, with that company, with this government, this government, this government, and when I woke up, I was like, oh, the red and blue, that's just a built-in dichotomy. They're both the same wing, two wings of the same bird, which is corrupt to the core, which has been for well over 100 years, probably came in prior to even Lincoln, how corrupting the federal government is. And our history here in the United States, we have a lot of freedoms, but we ruthlessly wiped out countless millions and millions and millions and millions of people here and abroad to keep our empire going. Yet we have the freedom for you and I to talk about that, whereas other countries you don't. Talk to me about that kind of thing, because I'm part of the solution. I want to be a solution myself. I want to help educate people. I've written a book. I'm actually re-editing it and going to publish it again. But talk to me about how to be the solution and not just a whiner, because a lot of shows like myself, they go, yeah, yeah, we see a problem, but then there's no action. There's no solution.
By design.
Yeah, I call it getting frustrated, political talk radio, is, yeah, and then you think did something, but you didn't do anything. You didn't go down to your city council and get to know those people and say, hey, I don't want my taxes raised. Hey, we need to take care of this. So talk to me about the what I call the escape valve, the let off all the steam, but then you don't do anything. You just inside you mentally masturbate thinking you know all this, but you're not putting your energy to actually creating solutions.
Yeah, look, so everything is a system in the universe, right? Email is a system, your body is a system, the universe is a system, everything. So what I have recognized is that if an individual really wants to progress in any level, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, financially, whatever you want to put it, right? They have to understand the nature of all systems. And the sooner they do that, they're going to become critical thinkers. Because when you understand how systems operate, and by the way, people say, oh, I know how systems work. No, you fucking don't. You don't. You have to go through my course because, and I don't say that because nothing else in the world has organized it so any human being can understand it. It's like the Henry Ford of system science. You know, that's what that course is. System science for every man, woman, and child. And when you understand system science, you will liberate yourself. So that's what this is. So what is system science? System science, um, what I uncovered was in engineering systems theory, they teach system science, but nowhere as with clarity as I do. Even MIT doesn't teach it as well. In fact, John Sterman, who's a professor at MIT, was sending his kids to my institute. Okay. And he charges like 15 grand for his course. I charge $100. Okay. See the difference? 140x difference. Okay. And you learn a lot more. But the reality is people need to understand systems if you want to be critical thinkers. What is a critical thinker? A critical thinker actually thinks. Because let me tell you the way that AI is going, it's mechanistic thinking. And if you are not a critical thinker, you're going to die financially. You will not be used. ChatGPT will do a lot of your mechanistic work. So that's one area. The other thing is critical thinking teaches you when it comes to your body that it's not one size fits all, nor is it a magic bullet. This is critical thinking. Critical thinking teaches you that it's not left or right. It's about who wants to build a bottoms up movement is a real leader. I'm a real leader. I'm educating people how to build bottoms up movement. I come from the bottom. And to me, the goal is to build bottoms up movements to shatter the swarm. Who is the swarm? Go watch shattertheswarm.com. If there's one thing you do in your lifetime, you should watch that video because it'll help you understand how the few control the many. And if you don't want to do that and you want to be a dumb fuck, great, because you're going to be fucked. But my job is to find those people who want to critically think. While I'm very generous with my time, I've realized that that generosity is not valuable if you're not spending enough time with those people who actually do want to do the work. So that's a growth phase that you go to as an educator. You know, as a leader, frankly, who do you spend your time with? Who do you want to actually lead? Do you want to lead and try to spend 90 hours on some guy who doesn't want to do the work, is lazy and fucking confused all the time, doesn't want, or do you want to spend 90% of the time, those people are just waiting and they want to learn and they want to learn more knowledge and they want to do the work. That's who I want to spend my time with. And that's been an interesting journey over the last 4 years as we built this movement. Where do you go, right? But nonetheless, we've created a system, an educational system to teach people how the system works. So you can shatter that system. That's what we've done. So it is an innovation, and people should go to truthfreedomhealth.com if you want to. If you want to save yourself. If you don't want to save yourself, please don't go there. Don't waste my time. So go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Watch Shatter the Swarm. Free course called Get Off the Plantation. And you have to study this. The biggest people that I don't like working with, oh, I know I've studied systems. No, you haven't. You have not. Because if you did, the world wouldn't be like this. I wouldn't be doing what I have to do. Okay? So I've taken the world of engineering system science and bridged it with ancient systems of medicine to create a new curriculum which integrates both, and that is bigger than the sum of the parts of both of these knowledge bases. It gives you greater wisdom faster. That's what's Truth, Freedom, Health is. It's for the people who want to get wise, who want to stand up on their own 2 feet, who want to shatter the swarm. That's what it's for. You know, that's what it's for.
Well,
But
I
if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you don't need a lot of people at a high level of critical thinking. The elites take what we were just discussing. They find all the best students. They then bring them to MIT and Harvard and Yale and a couple of other places, then indoctrinate them, co-opt them, and then make them to be their critical thinkers to advance power, profit, control. What
yes.
I'm trying to do is I'm creating that institution, that movement, that organization that is going to create an oppositional force to that because there's more of us than them. And the issue is, do people want to learn that? So, in fact, this Saturday, December 14th and 15th, I'm doing a lecture series called Think or Die. It's free to all of our Truth Freedom Health warriors. And if you don't want to be a warrior, then you're going to pay a minor tuition to get there, $25. And you're not going to get this anywhere. It's not even a selling thing. I realized that whenever I gave shit for free, no one learns it. I have scholarships. Everyone I've given a scholarship to never finishes a fucking course. So
Yeah.
why should I give scholarships? Because it turns out when you give something away, people do not value it at all. If you're willing to be a volunteer, maybe you need to do this. Is why the ancient gurus and teachers had people do some fucking menial labor. Do this, do that, do this, help me out, move some bricks, go do that, put some nails over there, move some hay, right? Mow the lawn, right? Now you learn that you have your labor is why you got knowledge. So anyway, so that's Truth, Freedom, Health. The movement is growing all over the world. We have created a way that people can come in at their own pace, but we get people on the ground. We have a little card. It says, Dr. Shiva, save yourself. Learn. If you want to learn to fight, hand out these cards. And the cards on the back of it has a curve which says cost of living is going up, lifespan is going down. Watch shattertheswarm.com. So so that's the innovation, Steve, taking all this very advanced curriculum, which I used to teach at MIT to 55 graduate students, many of them who are going off probably oppressing other countries now,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I said, why the fuck should I teach them? Was the number one elective, took it out of MIT, and I've brought like Prometheus bringing fire to everyone else. That's what it really is. It's not arrogant, but it is. It is fire. The knowledge of system science is fire, but it's fire to illuminate the mind and illuminate your spirit and illuminate that which needs to be illuminated to shatter the swarm. But if you don't want to learn it and you don't want to study, we have a woman, Crystal Ellis, who's my running mate. Crystal said, Shiva, Dr. Shiva, I've gone through your course like 30 times. And it's only now that I understand what a movement really is. Like we have a young electrician, Nicholas. Nicholas actually got the book, studied it. So as an educator, you love really good students and you frankly hate dilettantes and people who cheat. So we put together a program that's to really liberate the world. It's like you want to build an airplane, you got to learn this, aeronautical engineering. You want to destroy the swarm, come to Truth, Freedom, Health. If you want to fuck around, go talk to Joe Rogan or Booby fucking Kennedy and hang out there because they're just going to mislead. If you want to go to the Institute of Misleaders, go work under Trump, the biggest fucking con man on the planet. Okay.
Biggest,
And all the
biggest.
people around him.
I remember sitting in a trade show. This is years ago in my other career. This was back in probably 2014. No, actually 2008, 2006, 2004. Anyway, many years ago. And this guy was from New York. And we were doing an education thing, and he was sitting around before the show, and we were gotten to talking. And I don't know how Trump came up because it wasn't really much on my radar. He goes, Trump is a P.T. Barnum. And that never left me. And I voted for him the first time thinking he was okay. I went to his rally here in Everett. And then I had a wake-up call. I was literally, God woke me up the morning he had got elected. I didn't know he got elected, but I woke up and I literally was told, stop listening to political talk shows, stop watching the news. And we turned on the radio and it says he wins. And I said, shut that off. It was that snap. That's when I had the epiphany. And then I went on the great search, and I've been on it ever since. I, for myself, have been very involved with the the things of Christianity, Christ. I'm a Christ follower. And I've been a teacher within that realm, trying to disciple people and get them out of the system. Because in the church system are so many dogmas and doctrines that aren't from Scripture at all. They're from man to suppress other individuals and then use Scripture to justify their dealings. And so what I've been about is trying to one by one in my home, wherever I can, is help people be broken free from what they call doctrines of demons. And there's a connectivity there. So I write a lot, I teach a lot on the connection between the spirit realm and the physical realm, and that when you want to believe a lie, God himself, the author of life, says, go ahead. You'll be overtaken by that lie. And when a person like yourself or others seek truth, God will be revealed to them through the truth itself, and you'll be set free. So I've been part of this, and now I'm like, I want to reach a lot of people through my books, through my platform. And I'm like, I found you. I was listening to Owen Benjamin and discovered you with him. And I went, Owen has shifted. He's changed the systems. He's a leader. He's totally taken people that were out living their lives, and they're now married. They got kids. They're focused. They're working together. And I'm like, that's one example. There's other examples. And I've met you, and I'm like, I need to be trained under Shiva to understand the greater part, to take parts that I don't understand so that I can be a change agent. So I have a lot of head knowledge. I'm a teacher, but I'm the same way, Shiva. I have spent a lot of time with people and never seen any fruit. They don't want to, they stay mired in falsehoods, and they don't want to move. So now I'm like, I don't care. You stay there. I need to find people who are open and that are teachable. And
Yeah,
that's
so
what I've done.
here's the interesting thing, Steve. The if you go study really the teachings of Christ, right?
I
There's
do.
one, there's one section of the Bible that most Christians don't want to deal with, is when Christ takes the whip, and he did it many times, and he beats the shit out of these Sadducees and Pharisees, okay? And it was 7 days before he was crucified that he did his last temple beating, right? Most Christians don't want to talk about this. They say, oh, that was just an anomaly. But to me, that is the foundation of where heaven meets earth in the embodiment of this individual called Christ, this being, okay? And those in power always take revolutionary leaders after they die, and they iconize them into some blunt, instrument, so they can. So it's the elites always take over revolutionary leaders and then blunt their edge. That's how it happened throughout history. So the problem is, I will have, we have various Christian people come to our movement. They'll start quoting the Bible. And my point is, that's great, you're quoting the Bible, but you don't even need to go there. If Christ was arrived today, he wouldn't be quoting the Bible.
No, he would be living. He would be living the very thing. He would be living the very thing
right.
that he
So,
taught. Yes.
right. And you would show it in action. So I'll give you an example. When we decided to run for president, the goal was to mobilize. It was a vehicle to talk about these things and to mobilize people, find out who was actually real. Who would help get us signatures? Who would get on the ground and do the work? Who would get out in the cold? I mean, it was quite extraordinary. We're less than $120,000. We got on about 44 ballots, either as a write-in, and it's hard to get in as a write-in. You still have to get all your electors, and 13 states we got listed, and a couple of those are in lawsuit. So all these people who said they talk a big game. Owen was one of those guys. Owen said, oh, I'll help you get on the ballot in Idaho. Well, he just fucking disappeared. There's nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. You see? So you have people talking the truth, Steve. They may do certain things about the truth, okay? But they are not interested in building this broad-based movement to shatter the swarm. And this is a very different realm of human existence, because what you're talking about is educating people on a very fundamental level creating a bunch of Christs, creating a bunch of Malcolm X's, you see, in a lifetime. And this requires people who just don't, go off the grid, I'm living my life over here, off the grid and living in these little communities is not going to solve it. This movement says you have to face this directly. We have to live in this world and address this issue and you have to like face the problem. Like there's a fucking disease here, I have to face it. Not like I'm going to go over here and do my little off the grid community and I'm going to like, sell prep material and then we're all going to be bears or wolves or some shit. This is like escapism. Rich white kids can do that. Okay. Sorry. But everyday people who are suffering. You go look at what's going on in Syria. 90% of those people are only earning $2 a day. 90%. Okay. And so-called Christian Assad did this to these people. So frankly, I don't give a fuck about people who call themselves Hindus, Christians, all these things. Because these people say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Well, what did you actually do? What are you actually doing now? What is the right thing to do now? And that's the question that needs to be understood. Well, the right thing to do now is to fight evil and to take care of your health.
Yep.
Those are the two things everyone should be doing: truth, freedom, health. And those three words are scientific terms because what truth, freedom, health comes out of a very fundamental understanding of truth. It's a process, movement, a conversion of matter, information, and energy. That's truth. Another process is freedom, the movement of information, matter, and energy. And health is the aspect of structuring information, matter, and energy. You see, these are three processes that are time immemorial processes. So number one, are you grounded in those processes? That's what truth, freedom, health is. We have literally figured out the reality of how you're going to make it out of here if you want to get off the plantation. And to create heaven on earth here. Even if you go read the Christian Bible, we're supposed to have heaven on earth here, not after you die and you go to fucking heaven, all this bullshit and the Messiah comes. That's all bullshit. You're supposed to be sons of God or daughters of God here and now. That is
I would say that that's exactly the whole Beatitudes, the whole message of Christ was if you literally, you turn the other cheek, but what he's saying is you don't take out and go out and slaughter people. You go out and you work with truth and people are going to hate you.
I think a lot of the Bible words have actually changed. There's enough things in the Bible that were changed where Christ is actually, when I think Peter has two swords, he goes, all we need is one. There's enough stuff in the Bible that also talks about Christ was here, not as a man of quote unquote peace. Okay.
Oh no.
And what I'm trying to say is, I think there's so much been done. So it's like a guy wrote a book. I used to have a book called Christ the Revolutionary here. Someone took it from me, but it said the only way to understand the life of Christ is you have to look at, it's like particle physics. You can only look at the traces of what's left, the actions, you see, and then you can piece it together. Reading the words, we know, like Socrates said, he never liked to write stuff. People can bullshit through writing. You have to just look at the actions. And separate from Christ, you can look at your own actions. What are you doing right here and now? So that's what I'm saying. Our movement attracts those people at a very, fundamental level who see themselves as having a very deep, purposeful mission on this planet. They do the work on their own. They do it not for glory or anything. They just do it because it's the right thing. And those are the people that I enjoy working with. So whatever you want to call it, the bottom line is, are you fighting evil?
Right.
Are you working to fight evil? Period. And if you're compromising with evil and someone over there is fighting evil and you know that and you have them on your fucking show and you do podcasts with them so you can get views and clicks, and when that person says, come help us, you're like silent. What the fuck are you doing? You're doing something else. You're not doing stuff to fight evil, because if someone out there is fighting and you're supposed to be someone who wants to fight, you join and fight. You don't sit by and watch someone else be hammered. And so that is what our movement is building. We're building warrior scholars. You have to learn how to fight evil. And also, take care of your health. You got to do both. The only way we're gonna solve health is not by fucking getting fluoride out of our water. Booby fucking Kennedy, doesn't have to really worry about that because he's got his Voss waters and he can go wherever the fuck he wants. The number one source of destruction to the body is stress.
I 100%
Physical,
agree with
and
that.
that stress is coming from the inequity of the economic system.
Yep.
Period. It's called, so if you draw a curve of economic inequality on this axis and you draw health issues, you know, as the economic inequality goes, this, worsens, health issues are going up. Who's going to address that? Let's solve that. Let's not talk about fucking, I mean, I do all these videos, because I want our people to take care of their health. But you only want it, the reason I want you to be selfish to take care of your health is so you can fight the bigger issue over here. Simply taking care of your health and having your green drinks and doing your yoga, for what fucking purpose? Why are you doing that? So you could what? Live long and live long and live long and what? I mean, is the purpose
No, no,
of,
no, 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 Shiva. I want to.
not you. I'm just
No, no,
saying,
no. But I get your feel because I'm like, no, though there's a purpose. You live a long life so you can be there for your children, for your grandchildren, for those around you. You can go out and be a change agent within this world. It's not so you can spend all your time on the golf course and do your own thing. It's about I'm more activated now at 65 than I have been at 45, although I was raising my kids, and my kids are great and they love God, they love each other, they're hard workers. So but now I'm at a stage where I'm hooking in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring you on. Now I'm going to sign up. I want to learn. I've learned all this stuff. I'm, I want to be a part of doing it, even if it's sitting down at my local uh, city council and becoming
so Steve,
integrated.
you're in Washington. We have a young kid. His name is Bozen Nega. I think he's 29. Bozen is a very mature, thoughtful, young, sincere individual. Bozen uh, didn't have money, $100 to take the program. I mean, it's invaluable, this program, but we charge something because when I gave it away, no one wanted it.
Oh no, I tell people that all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have people who will call me up. Oh, I can't afford 100, and we'll give them scholarships. But they never take the course. Anyway, Bozen saved $5. Little by little, he took the course, and now he's become a leader in Washington. He's the one who got us on the ballot, Steve. He
Yeah,
mobilized other adults.
yep.
Okay. So he does, and he has diabetes on top of it, right? And he manages that, right? So here's a guy who walks the walk, put his $5 away, right? Got the money. Then on top of that, he came here to Massachusetts, helped us get on the ballot. You say? Went down to Mississippi, helped, led the team in Washington. Now he's a regional leader there, working with people in Canada. So these are the quality of people that are going to be the next real heroes of the world. We're going to really do the work very humbly, but do the work. He's learned the knowledge. He's learned how to articulate. He's learned how to lead other people who are 20, 30, 40 years older than him. So that is what the world needs. We need people understand the knowledge. This knowledge base I'm telling you, this knowledge base has heretofore not existed. The knowledge that I've organized. It's like saying, I want to build an airplane. Well, aeronautical engineering didn't exist. A set of people had to put that together. And now you have a school that you're training people, thousands of people every day learn how to go build airplanes. That's what I've created here. I've created this school, the knowledge base, so we can go shatter the swarm and fight evil. Because without this knowledge base, people think, oh, I'm gonna go take a gun and shoot somebody, like this kid who went and shot this healthcare executive, right? Well, he took a act of terrorism.
Yep.
Okay? True revolutionaries always denounce terrorism because what it does is whenever there's terrorism, it leads to the elites having an excuse to impose more fascism.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And that's what really happens. So the elites may already know perhaps revolutions are coming. So they may even do shit like this, you
Oh yeah.
say, to then say, oh, we have to protect CEOs. We have to do this. We have to disarm you. We have to in cities, and it keeps going on. So that's why I'm a big, there's some people, again, romanticizing this guy who shot this guy. True revolutionaries don't do that. You say, no, 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 no. Because
No.
what you're doing is you're going to enable the elites to justify fascism. The real issue is building up bottoms up movements. It takes effort, it takes time. You have to understand the physics, the science. It's not going to happen overnight, but that is a real movement, bottoms up. And that is what we're doing, Steve. So it begins with starting with shattertheswarm.com. Then it goes to watching those videos. And by the way, this it's a curriculum that's come bottoms up too. We asked all our people, how did you find us? Oh, I saw that climate change video you did. Oh, I saw that video you did on healthcare. So we put all those together so people, it wasn't random. Then we say, okay, now you got that. Now if you're helping to build some community, you know, invest in yourself, take the course, join this movement, come on Thursdays, et cetera, et cetera. But get out there and hand out cards, you know? Simple exercise, 20 minutes a day. Anyone can do 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes a day, an hour, maybe once every other day, you're going and working out, 20 minutes a day to be a Truth, Freedom, Health Warrior Scholar. 20 minutes, hand out cards, talk to people. Great. Integrate it into your life. You don't have to put, we have people who work very hard, you know, they're retirees or they sacrifice some areas. I mean, that's a different level of commitment. But we've created a program that everyone can learn this knowledge. You don't have to go to MIT. Everyone can participate and everyone be part of local communities. And everyone is learning critical thinking. Oh, Trump, why he said all this shit, but what did he actually do?
Let me show you something here. Just when you're speaking of Trump, I created a little artwork. There you go. Thugland. I in my it's got Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Joseph Biden, and Benjamin Netanyahu, and it's a takeoff on a movie Gangland. So I put it Thugland. And it says Banger Boys, the Boomer generation. I'm letting you know, folks, they're all criminals. These are all guys who are all criminals. They run their criminal syndicates, and it looks like they're in battling it out, but basically they're sitting around the table and saying, you get this turf, I get that turf. Don't go over this turf. If you do, we're going to go after you. But the bottom line is they all have their turf. And then all the people, the little people, they get smashed. They get
And
destroyed.
that's what happened in Syria.
And that's what happened in Syria,
That's what Syria
Palestine,
is.
Africa, you name it. It's going all over the world right now. And these guys at the top, you're just cannon fodder for them. They don't care about you. They don't care at all.
Yep. And that's the swarm right there. It's a piece of the swarm right there in that diagram. And that's what people need to understand. Syria, I did a couple of videos on this. It's a very good example. If you want, for people who want to build movements and want to critically think, you will shatter all illusions. There are people out there promoting, oh yeah, I'm anti-Zionist, but Assad and Putin are anti-imperialist. No, they're not.
No, they're
They
all part.
fled. They fled. They all took off. Assad took off this way, Putin took off that way, and Iran took off that way, right? So you got to understand who got fucked was the working people of Syria, who were building a revolutionary movement in 2011, and it was hijacked. It was hijacked, Steve, because they didn't have the physics. You see, if 20 people in the Syrian movement had gone through Truth, Freedom, Health, they would have not seen it as Islamists versus, the Iran Assad, clan, right? So they made the choice, okay, we want to fight Islamic jihadism, so we're gonna let Putin come in and do all our work for us. They would have continued building a bottoms up movement. And that's why they're suffering today. And the other thing is, it's not like more suffering leads to liberation. People think, oh,
No,
when the world gets really bad, then people will rise up. No, it's not true. When the world gets really bad, it actually gets worse.
it gets worse.
It gets worse. So this is an important principle. This is a scientific principle we teach in our movement because political, there's so many fucked up mental idiotic theories. Oh, Shiva, I like what you're doing, but not now. When things get really bad, then I may join your movement. Well, you're a fucking idiot. Because when things get really bad, you're going to be running around trying to get bread or food or trying to, you won't have the time. This is the time when you have a certain opportunity, particularly in the United States, where we have some remaining freedoms. Other countries, you can't hand out a flyer. You
No,
can't
you
hand
can't.
out a flyer on a street corner. You'll
No.
be in jail. Okay? So we have some of these freedoms. So the American working people, in some ways, have a huge responsibility to the world working class to do a historic duty to lead. But in order to lead, you have to learn how to lead, what the dynamics are, and that's what we've created, Steve. This is really like an engineering institution for revolution, for critical thinking. Over here is an engineering institution at Harvard for oppression. Okay,
Yes.
MIT as an engineering institution for learning stuff, so you can go build bombs for the military-industrial complex, et
Yes.
cetera. Right? Yale is an engineering institution to create scumbag lawyers who write all sorts of fucked up briefs to justify all sorts of oppression. You see? So they've created their institutions. Where is the institution for engineering revolutionaries? That's Truth, Freedom, Health. It's the institute. It's the Institute for Revolutionary Engineering, IRE, IRE.
So my question then is when they go through it, and I'm going to go through it, and you really, and it takes time because you got to become a disciple. You have to learn. You have to
You have
watch
to
what goes
integrate
on.
this knowledge into
Th-
understanding. Yeah.
Then I could say, for instance, I have, let's say I get 10 people in my local area, and we do this. Then we could start making changes on how, for instance, our city works or our community works. Or I want you to give me some examples of how you would
Yeah,
put.
well, let's look at, I mean, like give you big examples. Okay. So
Yeah.
first of all, let's talk about the fact that when you apply this critical thinking, what happened in 2020? Who was the first one to speak out against COVID and saved hundreds of millions of people's lives? That was
Well,
me.
I mean, I was spoken out, but I didn't have hundreds of millions of
No, no,
followers.
but I'm saying
Right.
if you look at our video views, we're close to 500 million when we count it all up. I was the first one as an MIT trained PhD who said this COVID stuff this pandemic fear mongering will destroy economies, right?
Yep.
Push mandated medicine and will destroy speech. First one. Jay Bhattacharya, Trump just appointed, wrote a scientific paper which said why lockdowns were important at that time.
Oh, I
And
know.
then, what's that? And then we ran the Fire Fauci campaign. Then whatever their Barrington Declaration was a ripoff, a plagiarism of ours, because they said, holy shit, this guy who's not in any camp is getting all this visibility. Let's create this other fake version of what he's doing. And that's who Jay Bhattacharya is. And that's the deception, you see? So what I'm saying is, what did we do? Well, take the election fraud stuff. I was the one who uncovered that the machines can flip votes. Massachusetts. So what did we do? We taught people 3,000 different communities all over the United States. We taught people how to go to their town halls, do a FOIA to get their participating voters list, and look at the actual people who came to vote. Compare them. They better be perfect. Otherwise, votes were misused. We did that. You see? So once we understood the system, we mobilized people on the ground. It didn't mean running for office per se, right? It was our movement that I said, look, it's not about pro or anti-vax. It's about the immune system. We ran the first biggest immune health conference here in Massachusetts in live, physically. 600 people showed up, 3,000 people online. Kennedy sent his lawyer who was trying to convince me I should use cytosolve to create safe vaccines. And I said, what did you just say, Aaron? This is Aaron Siri, scumbag. Okay. So the reality is that it is our movement, which is the one that got out all the election fraud stuff that Trump stole and made $500 million off. He co-opted my material. It is our movement that ran the Fire Fauci campaign. It is our movement that created the solutions why you should take vitamin D3 and quercetin and zinc. Zelenko bottled it up, but we gave it away for free. You know, nearly about at least 100 million people in India through WhatsApp heard about our stuff. You see, our stuff went viral. And then when I exposed the fact that the government has election systems where they delete ballot images, that went viral. And then they shut me down from Twitter. For 2 years, I was off Twitter. And when I went back on, I was the one who discovered in 2020 there's a backdoor portal into Twitter. That's what our movement did. So think about all the accomplishments we've done, Steve. We exposed the fact that government and social media companies are like this. We're the ones who expose why Fauci should be fired. We're the ones who expose why vitamin D3 on a global scale is important to take. I probably made people $1 billion, man. But we should have been selling our own supplements then. We didn't. Okay. It was our movement that exposed the fact that um, the the uh, the election systems have a machine feature in there where you can do a weighted race feature. And I and this wasn't just theory. It was they did that to me in Massachusetts. I was thrown off Twitter. They did that to me.
Yep.
It was not only me being victimized by it, but then putting on my hat as an engineer, figuring out the solutions. So we've already done more than any of these people have done in 20 lifetimes. So now what we're doing is the system here is to raise consciousness. Okay, that's the
Okay.
goal here.
Perfect.
It's hard for people to understand the goal, the ends and the means have to be linked. The means do not justify the ends. The means and the ends have to be together. So what's the goal? The goal is to raise consciousness.
Okay.
Because if you have a system, let's say a million particles, and one system starts vibrating a certain way, another part of it vibrates. They don't know why this works. It's a 100 monkey principle. Okay? Information, matter, and energy are linked. Information travels at this probably faster than the speed of light, speed of thought. So the goal here is when one person understands the dynamics of the swarm, it's going to get someone else to understand it. Someone else understands it. Now this particle system of a million particles, which are connected, when enough things move, you're going to create you don't need all of them to move. This is what people don't understand. Imagine a million interconnected balls connected by springs. If you can imagine this.
Yep.
When even one moves, it oscillates. When two moves, it oscillates. It's more. When enough move, you create a standing wave. That's called a wave of consciousness. That is what we are doing. And the elites know this principle. So they use it to manipulate us,
Oh, they do. Yes. Yep.
right? So we're going at the heart of the issue. Do you want to save yourself? Do you want to understand the dynamics of oppression? If you do, we will teach you. We're not here to save you. We're going to teach you this, and our goal is if enough people move, the manifestation of that, I can't predict, and nor is it right for me to predict, because that would make me then a top-down fascist. You see, that's why many of these revolutionary movements went off course. Everyone says we will, now we're gonna. This is a world that we envision, right? I don't want to be the visionary of this utopian world. What I want to envision are people understanding these concepts. Why is Trump bad? Why is Bernie Sanders bad? How many other Bernies do they have in alignment to manipulate on the left and the right? That is a principle. Once people understand that, once you understand a principle, you can apply it everywhere. It's not like, oh, there's a Tulsi Gabbard, I followed her. Oh, I followed Bernie for a while. Oh, I followed Obama. Once you understand the system's dynamic, that these people exist to manipulate you back to the swarm so you don't get off your butt and build a movement, that's the key. They don't want you off your butt, me and you talking to Bosin. By the way, you should get introduced to Bosin. He's in your net. You and Bosin and five other very awakened people understanding, then it's over for the state of Washington. You don't even need 100 people. You need 10 because it's like a wave. You see? And the more deeper the knowledge base is, the more the wave will expand. This is why, I could burn a million trees down to create a bunch of, heat. But if I learn to take a little piece of plutonium and hit it at the right point, right, with another neutron, you create a molecular reaction. This much, plutonium can blow up all of Boston, okay? No matter the billions of trees I cut, it won't do it, okay? This is the power of when you go down to the root of the knowledge base. And that's what Truth, Freedom, Health is. We've ripped away all the fucking bullshit, all the liberal shit, all the people, well, you should wait when there's, all this theories people have, and gone down to the root. And the root is the universe is composed of 9 principles. 3 of them are manifest in these processes: truth, freedom, health, or transport, conversion, storage. The Indians called it Bhath, Pith, Kapha. Now you have a framework that's grounded in natural laws to look at everything, your body, everything. That's what I've uncovered. So it's beyond gold, this knowledge, but we need enough people to value it, study it deeply, and then apply it. You apply it to your body. You understand that these 3 forces. Every food has transport conversion storage in it. Your body has transport conversion storage. Wherever your body is, these food. So you can become your own doctor like that. The pages 57 to 87 of System and Revolution. I mean, I wrote that. I don't know how I wrote it, but when I wrote it, it was in a different state of mind, of a lot of meditation, etc. But when you read that book, every doctor, every practice, anyone who wants to be healthy, within reading that book, you will understand the ancient systems of Indian medicine. That many of these Ayurvedic and gurus, people fucking put on their turbans, they speak all day. They don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. I've made it easily accessible. I gave a talk at Harvard several years ago. They had me come this East-West talk. There were a bunch of guys in their turbans and gurus and a bunch of Harvard MDs. I said, look, the knowledge I've come together is unfortunately going to put all of you guys out of business. It democratizes this. You guys
Yeah.
want to make it very hard to understand. That's what a lot of the religious freaks do. They put on their garb. They make things purposely hard to understand. I'm sorry, I don't need to read the whole fucking Bible to get the essence of what Christ was about. I don't need to read all that. I don't need to read it
No,
because
no.
if
What?
you connect or the Quran or the Hindu scriptures, it's a direct connection that you can have once you walk the walk. You walk the walk, you're connected. If you don't walk the walk, you're disconnected. And
Well,
you have to sit and reflect a certain amount
yeah.
of time during the day too. But the point is, Steve, we've created the program. It really is an institute for revolution engineering. That's what it is. It has principles.
What I find it's interesting is two
Like
people.
chemical engineering, like your dad and my dad did, you know?
Yeah.
You have to understand Michelson-Menten equation. You have to understand, certain processes. You have to understand activation energy. I've uncovered these principles, and these principles must be understood by those who claim they want to change the world. So, and it's frankly over. This is why we've caused so much problems for Trump and Booby Kennedy and Joe Rogan, all these guys, because people say, wait a minute, Rogan said this, but they'll say Dr. Shiva exposed all this nonsense out of him, right? Because they create characters you're not supposed to attack when they are highly, highly compromised people. Steve, I hope this was valuable. It's
Yeah, I was going to say, I know we
yeah,
got to get going, and
yeah. I'm sorry about the late start. Yeah.
this has been wonderful, and it's been very valuable. I'll be signing up for your classes, getting some
Oh,
books.
everyone, December 14th and 15th, if you go to our website, you'll see I just tweeted stuff out, but if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your kids. You can't be a derelict parent. Your kids are entering a world where if you're not a critical thinker, you will be outsourced to AI and robots. You really will. And that's what the Elise wants. If you're not a critical thinker, you will not know how to take care of your body. If you'll think, do this, do that, okay? Pro seed oil, anti seed oil. Kennedy's a fucking idiot. It's not seed oils, moron. It's processing, okay? You learn basic chemistry of alkanes and alkenes, okay? People have been, it's not all these don't eat grain, eat grain. Don't eat meat, eat meat. It's all this dialectic, you see? How did you process the grain? Ancient traditions took the grain, they processed it. Everything is chemistry. So when you don't teach people chemistry, when you don't teach people math and physics and science, you end up with a bunch of dumb fucks, okay? Booby fucking Kennedy's a fucking boob, okay? He should be in jail. He should be homeless. But because he's a Kennedy, he can do no harm. He can get away with a lot of shit. So,
So a lot of people can get away with a lot of shit because they are within the system. And when you are, you just keep. I mean, look, Fauci should have been put to jail back in the 80s when he pushed AZT. I mean, come on, we all know about this. But he is put on high. He was trotted right back out. And one thing I
well,
want to
let
point
me
out.
just, Steve, I think you know who should be in jail? Booby Kennedy should be in jail in March of 2020. He promoted lockdowns.
That's
Lost
right.
barrel with Fauci. And then he stole my material and wrote a book a year later attacking because that was the CIA needed a character to act like he's against him. But go look at March of 2020 when it mattered. How many people did Booby fucking Kennedy kill by promoting lockdowns? How many people did Joe Rogan kill by promoting lockdowns? How many people did all of these people kill? Forget even Fauci's easy. That's easy. You see, that's easy. But you have to look at the not so obvious establishment, Steve. That's Booby fucking Kennedy. That's Donald fucking Trump.
Oh no, no,
That's Tulsi Gabbard. They all promoted
yes.
vaccine mandates. mask mandates, and lockdowns. They killed people.
Uh, I just so you know, I wrote an open letter to to the governor of Washington State, and I sent it to his to the office of in the Capitol in Washington State, and I sent it to several newspapers, public outlets, of saying, open up the schools, open up everything. You're going to kill people. You're going to treat, and I did a whole page, and I voiced it. I had one local paper that allowed it to go public on online, but I was vocal. I'm like, you're going to face God someday for what you're doing. This is evil to the nth degree. So I was out there, making it, and I said the same thing. I told everybody, don't good cop, bad cop. Biden was the bad cop. Trump's the good cop, but he was the good cop, then the bad cop, then the good cop. Did you forget the Operation Warp Speed? Did you forget all that? And all my friends, oh no, Trump's changed. He's gonna. So I'm all there. Um, and I
Yeah,
did.
Trump just said that. First, he said, "I'm going to bring down grocery store bills." Oh, well, when they're up, they're up. Oh, and every one of his appointees is a Zionist cocksucker.
I know.
So, all you Christian Zionists out there,
I know.
you're gonna have a good day in fucking hell, I hope. Okay, you Christian Zionists ain't Christians.
Thank you. I try to say the same thing. You can't promote evil and call yourself good. I always say, what's your belief systems? What's the fruit of your belief system? And if it leads to evil, apparently your belief system doesn't change you. It causes issues. So thank you so much for being on, Dr. Shiva. By the way,
Thanks,
one
Steve.
more time, I tell people the easiest way to go to get you. Just a single place.
So
And then,
number one, everyone should go. I'm going to give you homework assignment. Shattertheswarm.com.
and it,
Then
yeah,
go graduate to truthfreedomhealth.com. Okay. And then finally, come to our orientations. We do vashiva.com/orientation. Every Thursdays, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. You will meet other people. Steve, make sure you send me an email so you can meet Bosin.
I
Okay.
will. I
And you
will.
guys should connect up. He's a great guy. And everyone know that we have leaders all over the world now. So you won't be alone. But when you learn this knowledge, it's going to liberate you. And it's not immediate. You have to go through a process, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a refinement process. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. And I just want to say thanks everybody for joining me on the Lion Zone. And thank you, Shiva, for joining me as well. This has been wonderful. And as I like to say, remember, be the lion and not the prey.